Welcome into a season-ending edition of Hit 'em High with Eagles legend Seth Joyner. Alongside Everett Terry, I'm Scott Seidenberg. We are presented by King's Mark Cabinets, coming to you live from Parx Casino, reminding you to share this episode and comment on it as well, because we will read your comments on the air, whether you're watching us on Facebook, on YouTube, or on Twitch. Hit us up at My New Philly as well. And I've been out with the flu, guys. I'm feeling much better in terms of the flu, but I'm still sick over what happened yesterday in the Eagles' loss to the Seattle Seahawks. Wildcard weekend at the Link. Honestly, it's not so much about how they lost or the Wentz injury or the hit by Jadeveon Clowney. It's this growing sense of what if. The question that I have in my head, the question that I think all Eagles fans have in their minds, what if? Is it fair, Seth, to ask the question, what if, after watching that game yesterday?
Absolutely, it's fair. And you have to ask yourself that question because I don't think anyone with any sense about them who's watched Carson Wentz play over the last 5 weeks believes that had he not gotten hurt in that game yesterday, that the Eagles had a legitimate chance and probably would have won that game. I mean, when you go back and you just look at the numbers, there's a couple of plays in the game from an offensive perspective that gives Seattle, the heads up as far as the day is concerned. But, most of Seattle's damage that they did on the offensive side of the ball happened in the second half. Mm-hmm. It wasn't like they were way far ahead. And when you look at the numbers, Russell Wilson in the second half, you're not going to believe this. Russell Wilson was 6 for 9 for 144 yards in the second half and 1 passing touchdown.
I feel like all those yards went to DK Metcalf.
Yeah, okay. And then without Carson Wentz, Josh McCown was 12 for 15 for 147 yards, okay? Now, you take a guy like Carson Wentz, his numbers aren't going to be that pedestrian in the second half, okay? And he's going to at least throw for, at least 1 touchdown at some point in the game, okay? So when you take all of those things into consideration, you can most certainly, make a case for the point that if Carson Wentz doesn't get hurt, that this game has a completely different tenor. As good a job as Josh McCown tried to do yesterday, it's tough to throw a quarterback in under those circumstances. The inability to get in and out of the huddle, the inability to get in and out of the proper plays at the line of scrimmage, the 5-yard penalty down in the red zone was an absolute killer. Mm-hmm. Those kinds of things, when you have your franchise quarterback at the helm, those things don't happen. You don't allow the play clock to run out and take a 5-yard penalty at the most critical and crucial point, where especially, what you've been trying to do is you've been trying to get the ball in the end zone. You've been in the red zone 4 times and you only walked away, with nothing but field goals. And you're right there. You get the PI and you're right there on the 5-yard line. And you've been struggling for yards by inches all day long. And the one thing you cannot do is you cannot take a delay of game penalty. And Josh McCown, he did it. So, to answer your question, absolutely. I think we're sitting here having a different conversation, feeling a little bit different, and quite frankly, planning, to be doing this all over again next week.
Mm-hmm. All right. I sit here and I listen. Seth, I love you, man. But I'm going to have to tell you something. Did we not see these same 2 teams play in the same stadium?
Same score.
Same score?
Same score.
Okay, and Wentz played the full game, right?
Yeah.
And Wentz played one of his worst games of the season, right?
Absolutely.
So what on God's earth makes you think that if Wentz played this game, then all of a sudden the outcome was going to be different?
Because...
Hold on.
Wait a minute. You asked me a question.
Right.
So wait a minute. So if you're going to ask me a question, then you give me the opportunity to respond to the question. Okay. Now, if you want to make a statement doesn't come, with a question mark at the end of it. It comes with an exclamation. It comes with an exclamation point.
I'm gonna let you go.
But my point is, they played their worst game, but since then he's played his best football. Wait a minute. He's played his best football. okay? They had 5 turnovers in the first game. You have to believe that he's not turning the football over 5 times in yesterday's game, with the emphasis being we can't turn it over. Okay.
Every week is the emphasis not to turn it over.
No. It's every week is an emphasis, but when you've already done it and then you come back under the same situation all over again, yeah, the point of emphasis is, okay, this is the playoffs. You know, the last time we lost, we had another game coming up. This game, it's always different. You know,
they just felt differently watching those games. Watching that loss
completely different game.
And watching yesterday felt completely different.
Let me finish where I was going with that. So everybody says Wentz was playing better. You're right. He beat the Giants, the Redskins, the Cowboys.
Doesn't matter.
Okay, cool, great. Beat up on some of the worst defenses easily in the NFL. That's fine. Okay, great. He did play better with a bunch of guys that, you know, came off the scrap heap who've played well and have earned spots in the NFL probably for next season. But let me ask you a question. DK Metcalf had nothing to do with Carson Wentz. Absolutely nothing. And he torched him, okay? On the play that kind of ended the game, they literally did a 0 blitz. The man ran 40 yards downfield and caught a jump ball on whoever the hell number 37 Epps is. I've never heard of this guy. Maybe he owns a pizza shop or something, and they picked him up to come in and play a game.
He's been playing all year.
Where? He's made no plays. He shouldn't have been on the field.
He hadn't made any plays, but he's been on the roster. I mean, if you've been paying attention, he's been on the roster. And when they've had to go dime personnel, he's been the deep free safety all year.
Because he let the man get behind him.
But you can talk about Metcalf all you want, and the plays that Seattle made, they still limited Seattle to those 17 points, and they still had multiple trips inside the red zone where they should have converted instead of field goals, touchdowns. They were in the red zone so many times that if they just converted touchdowns or even first downs and extended those drives on the 2 fourth downs that they did not convert, we're talking about a completely different game. I don't think it's fair to criticize the Eagles' defense in this game because this game was solely on the Eagles' offense.
I was only making a point, and here's the point of what I'm making. We act like McCown came in and played terrible. He didn't. For what he was asked to do, which is basically be a game manager and not lose them the game, he didn't do that. He did everything he could to try to help them win. He played what a game manager is, an average guy who doesn't cost you the game. He didn't cost you the game, he just couldn't go out and win it. Fair. If Wentz plays, does he maybe pick up that 4th down play where Clowney tackles him from behind? I don't even know that Wentz gets away from Clowney, to be honest with you.
It might not even get to that point, E.T., because the playbook is open with Carson Wentz.
It's opened up a little more.
With Josh McCown, it shrinks.
I'll give you that.
All the players that have been stepping up, Greg Ward was not existent yesterday. He had developed such a relationship with Carson Wentz. He has been his #1 weapon outside of Zach Ertz and Boston Scott and Miles Sanders doing their thing out of the backfield. He was nowhere to be found sans 1 catch yesterday with Josh McCown. Why? Because Josh McCown hasn't had the reps to work with these guys.
That's fair.
Josh McCown was keying in on Zach Ertz because he was the only guy that he trusted in that offense because he's the only guy he probably knows in that offense. We saw after the game where Josh McCown was being consoled by Zach Ertz. They probably have the best relationship out of anybody on that offense, so he was targeting him the whole time, right? There was not that much involvement from Boston Scott where there should have been more involvement from Boston Scott. There should have been more involvement from Greg Ward. You should have got Dallas Goedert more involved. But Josh McCown, when he comes in, the playbook shrinks. His options shrink. He doesn't have the mobility of Carson Wentz, and he's focused in on probably his #1 primary option because he doesn't have the time or the ability or the skill to go through the progressions like Carson Wentz does.
Okay.
There's a reason why he is a lifelong journeyman backup.
Right. Well, yeah. Okay. And I get that. The Eagles called him, okay? The guy was retired. They called him. That's who they chose.
Yeah, but they call backups. Backup quarterbacks get hired. Backup quarterbacks get hired not to play. Backup quarterbacks get hired as an extension of the coaching staff in that film room.
I put a tweet out the other day when we were watching. I'm trying to think, who was the DB that got hurt in the Saturday playoff game? There was a major player that got hurt and his replacement had to come in.
Which game?
Gosh.
Yes, Stephon Gilmore. Stephon Gilmore went down. He came back, though.
No, there was
Jadeveon White, Buffalo? No.
I'll find it, and I'll come back to it. I'll find it in my Twitter in a second. I tweeted, there's a reason why a backup is a backup.
Of course.
Okay. And the minute that his backup came on the field, the opposing team attacked him. And for the game-clinching play, guess who got attacked? And a touchdown.
Well, I know Patrick Robinson got that. Just happened to Patrick Robinson. He came in. He came in and he got torched.
That was yesterday.
Right.
But that's my entire point. You know, there's a reason why in today's newfangled NFL, guys are playing less supposedly to keep them fresh, okay? In my day, you know, I was a starter for a reason, and the guy behind me was a backup for a reason. I was a starter because I was better than him. He was the backup because he wasn't as good as me. You understand what I'm saying? Because you knew when I was on the field that you was going to get a certain level of play. With that guy, you had no idea what you may get.
That's true.
You know? So that still rings true today. That's why I don't understand why these defensive coordinators don't require guys to get in shape to play a whole game. And you're rotating these second and third team guys in, and it creates these situations where you either A, get gashed, B, a touchdown gets scored on you. There's always something that's happening and going on within a game. Your best players should be on the field in the most critical times. And when you had to put a backup on the field to play, especially at a position like quarterback, come on, man. The odds of you winning go so substantially down that it's not even. It's unbelievable. It's unbelievable. And you know what? You can talk about the competition. I've said it before, I'll say it again. There's only 1,696 players in the NFL. It's the best of the best, okay? The teams that aren't good, and I'll say this, that, you know, divisions are cyclical. I can remember a time when the NFC West, the Seattle Seahawks, the Arizona Cardinals, the San Francisco 49ers, and the Rams were garbage.
Yep.
That's fair.
We're garbage. And we were talking the same thing. The same way that we're talking about the NFC East right now is the same way that San Francisco used to be. Okay?
Well, happened a couple years ago. The 7-9 division champion Seahawks hosted the Saints in a wildcard playoff game. That was the Marshawn Lynch earthquake game, and they won that game.
And I don't have a plan with the system and the way the system is put together for playoffs, because some people are upset that, you know, hey, the Eagles, you know, are 9-7. Why should they be hosting 11-5? Because that's the way that it's set up. It is what it is, you know. But my thing is, you got players in the league. If you're on a roster, then that means that you can play.
Yep.
You know, and there's only 32 of these teams in the entire world playing at an elite level, and those guys have got pride just like everybody else. Whatever the circumstances are, whether you're under-talented, whether you're under-coached, whether you're under-managed as an organization, you're still a professional team, you know. And if the Miami Dolphins can beat some of the teams that they beat down the stretch,
like the Patriots,
and still wind up 3-13, 2-14, that just tells you, well, even 4, it doesn't even matter. Doesn't even matter. You're in the top 5 or 6 teams that are going to pick in the NFL draft. You know what that means? Y'all stink.
That's okay.
That means y'all suck.
We understand.
Okay?
We own it.
So if that's the case, then and if they can still win games, then that goes to show you, you know, how tightly woven the teams are and how close they really are. Because if they were as bad as that 5-11 record reflected, they should be 0-16 at this point in time. So I don't want to hear about, oh, they played an easy schedule, oh, they played teams weren't that good. No, I don't want to hear that. That's nonsense. That's nonsense. You play who you play, and you don't have any control over that.
A big shout out to the Best Damn Eagles group and Bleeding Green Nation groups on Facebook who have been supporting us each and every week with hundreds of viewers. And you guys want to comment, we'll read those comments on the air. Like Deborah, who says this was a different game. You can't conclude it would have been the same if Carson played, or it would have been the same as what happened in that last time that these two teams met. But E.T., let's talk about the hit that everybody's talking about. Jadeveon Clowney comes down, hits the back of the head, stop it, hits the back of the head of Carson Wentz. Wentz not only gets the back of his head hit, but he also hits the ground. He's concussed. After 8 snaps, he is out of the game. My point, and I want to know if you agree with this, everyone complains about the hit. If the Eagles got a 15-yard penalty on that play, which they should have done.
Changes nothing.
Changes nothing. 15 yards doesn't win them this game.
Right.
15-yard penalty there doesn't win the game. And I don't want to hear about Jadeveon Clowney being ejected. That never happens. This isn't college football. There's no targeting. He wasn't getting ejected. The hit was late. It should have been a penalty. It was helmet to helmet, but it wasn't a penalty. Even if it was, Eagles still lose this game.
I think the bigger knife in the side is the fact that it was Jadeveon Clowney, a guy that people early in the year wanted to play for the Eagles. A guy when they were looking at the fact they had no push from their defensive line and were looking for a player to come in and have impact, to be that guy that at least 2 to 3 times a game is going to make a play that changes the game. And he was disruptive for what it was worth. You know, was he worth the cost of admission? And so when you look at that,
he was also the guy who made the key tackle on the 4th down.
And there it is. That's the guy they say, well, if we had him on our team instead of playing against us, then maybe we're playing somebody else. We're doing something different. And so now the ire of fans and the bane of their anguish now swings to, well, Howie, yeah, granted, Greg Ward did great. Okay, cool. You know, he was a 6th-round pick, undrafted guy, whatever the case may be. You know, you got Deontay Burnett, who nobody heard of until like 5 weeks ago. You know, you got these guys out here playing, and that's awesome and that's wonderful. But you had chances to go out there and get impact guys that would have helped this team. You didn't, and ironically, the guy that comes back to bite us in the butt is the guy that you passed on, who knocks our quarterback out the game, who we've been trying to protect all year. You know, we argued all year, hey, they don't have enough weapons. You saw Emmanuel Sanders playing huge for San Francisco. He went for next to nothing. You know, you see these things, and that's what makes people upset. That's what burns them. If it were somebody else from Seattle, it probably wouldn't have been as much frustration with the fact that because like you said, the 15-yard penalty doesn't change the outcome of the game. McCown's still coming in, and he's not going to get ejected. So at that point, what does it change? I mean, Wentz still got hurt. It was a freak play. You know, all right, fair. It's football. It happens. But when it happens to be that guy, that's where people get upset.
Probably an unanswerable question. But if the Eagles dress Nate Sudfeld for that game yesterday, does he play over McCown, Seth?
No.
He ain't played all year.
No.
I'm just saying.
McCown.
Because part of me wanted Greg Ward to take snaps.
Maybe he goes in. Maybe he goes in after McCown, you know, pulls his hamstring.
Yeah.
I mean, he was forced. He was forced to finish, but you know, McCown is the guy. You know, to you guys' point, does it change anything? No. But what it does is it changes the mindset of the one guy who is wreaking havoc on the entire offense. Okay.
So you're saying if they flag Clowney there?
Yeah, they have to flag him.
Well, they have to.
You got to flag him, because what does the flag do? The flag brings it to his awareness that, you know what, we're watching you now. I mean, he was jumping on people's backs all day yesterday.
That's accurate.
I mean, just pile jumping on people.
Knocking Peters out the way.
And I mean, Jason had a tough day. That, you know, the whole assertion that I got a lot left in the tank. I don't know what tank you're talking about. Maybe in your gas tank, or maybe, you know, in that propane tank that you got home.
It's hot water.
You ain't got that much gas. You ain't got. I mean, listen, Jadeveon Clowney.
They had to triple team him to stop him.
Jadeveon Clowney ran circles around him yesterday.
Yes.
Okay.
That's
just a fact. What they needed is they needed somebody to chop him. They needed somebody to hit him in the mouth. They needed somebody to hit him on his knee to send a damn message, is what they should have did. Well, Jason Peters was the perfect guy. Okay, listen, on one of those moves, you know that if you jump set him, that he's gonna jump, he's gonna take the inside. Okay, just do like a little half a jump and bait him, and then fall on that right knee as he jump inside. Listen, football's all about sending a message. You're gonna jump on the back of my quarterback's head, okay? Hit him in the back of the head. Hey, listen, I played with some offensive linemen that wouldn't even have tried to disguise it. All right, you took our guy out. Oh, you going out before the day is over, okay? And for the NFL, for the referee after the game is over to say what he said was absolutely absurd.
That it was incidental?
I mean, there is no such thing as an incidental helmet-to-helmet call. If that was the case, there would be less helmet-to-helmets called.
Right.
Because 9 times out of 10, how do they occur? What's the natural thing? If I go to hit you, the first thing you do, you do that.
Right.
See me lower my angle, okay? So it's a reflex. And the same thing happens when you're playing the game of football, specifically quarterbacks, because they got their eyes down the field. So any kind of flash, you know, causes that reflex. You know, so guys come in, and my target is the chest or the mid body, and the minute that you realize that you're going to get hurt, what's the first thing you do? You lower your head, and when helmets collide, the referees don't take into account that that's the guy that lowered his helmet that caused the helmet to helmet. The defender is always the guy that gets called for the penalty, okay? So that BS that, it was incidental contact, and he was a runner, and he's not afforded any longer the protections of being in the pocket because he didn't give himself up, that's pure BS. Because the reason why you created all of these rules is to protect the most valuable commodity on the 53-man roster. That's the quarterback, okay? Now, if he's not giving himself up, I agree 100%. But when the guy is taking a dive forward and a guy jumps on his back with his shoulder angled, with his head down, and puts the full brunt of his weight on the back of this guy, that has to be dealt with, especially if it's a quarterback.
And if I'm going to send him a note, a little pink slip.
Well,
but that's after the fact. You're 100% correct. But the problem is the inconsistencies.
True.
With the refs in the NFL and what you see from week to week to week. What's a penalty? What's not a penalty? Why is it when it's defensive pass interference, it's a spot foul, but when it's offensive pass interference, it's a 10-yard penalty? I mean, all these inconsistencies of how the game looks and how the game should be is nonsensical, And it makes fans want to just puke when they sit there and they watch their team having to deal with these types of things. And the NFL has the full potential and the full ability to fix it, to lay it out so that the referees know what it is. That referee that was in the game that made that statement last night, he knows the full tilt of the rules in the NFL. For him to say what he said, that's damn right criminal, man.
Well, we also know that, Al Rivron isn't exactly going to win, head official of the year. He wasn't a good official when he was on the field, and he sure isn't a good one sitting up in a booth watching plays.
It also hurts that in the playoffs, it's an all-star officiating crew, so it's a crew that has never worked together during the season. They're all being thrown together,
right.
So that does have a factor.
Randomly.
Well,
they're supposed to be the best of the best.
The best graded throughout the year.
The other incomprehensible thing is that Chris Collinsworth and Al Michael didn't say it, and Michelle Tafoya didn't say a damn word about that play the entire game.
Yeah.
They kept showing it he bumped his head on the ground. Are you kidding me? How do you not make a comment about that? And then how do you go into the fourth quarter and you continue to show the play and talk about it, and you don't talk about it? Are you kidding me?
The flag does change the way that maybe Clowney plays a little cautiously.
There's no doubt about it that it does.
Because he doesn't want to get another 15 yards.
These guys these are supposed to be professionals, and they sit there and they act like they didn't see what they saw.
Of course
like if I don't say anything, maybe it won't be a big deal about it. Are you kidding me? In the city of Philadelphia, you don't think there's going to be a big deal about it?
Hey, man.
Of course it's a big deal. One final thing I want to get to before we move on to the whiteboard. 6 and change left in the game, E.T. They go for it on fourth down.
Right.
Granted, the wheel route was open. It was a bad throw. Sanders maybe could have made the catch. He was moving behind. He had to put his hands behind him to take the catch. Should have been a first down. But at that point, with all 3 timeouts,
kick the field goal.
Could you have kicked the field goal, made it, 17-12 at that point, and then if you get the ball back and you get into the red zone again, which they did, a touchdown wins the game as opposed to needing a touchdown and a 2-point conversion.
I looked at the fact that
to tie it.
Say what you want about McNown, he was moving the ball effectively up and down the field. He struggled when he got into the red zone, but he was able to move the ball. You're down there with a chance to score in a game where points have come at a premium, okay? Elliott was hitting field goals. Let's take advantage of that because he had struggled
3 timeouts and the 2-minute warning.
And you still got the 2-minute warning. You take the 3. Now you play clock game. You pin them deep. You let your defense get you one more stop. Maybe Jim Schwartz doesn't sell out and give up a 40-yard bomb down the middle of the field, because at that point you know now it's either all or nothing. Now you're playing just to get the ball back, which essentially they do. And now at this point you're playing for a win. Maybe Seattle gets a little edgy. They're starting to feel the crowd. The crowd gets behind them. There's a whole bunch of different scenarios that play by taking the points. But what you do when you go forward on fourth down is you put all your pressure on your defense and say, we got to get the ball back. And not only do we have to score,
they did.
we
to
have
credit
to get
the defense, they did get the ball back.
But then Seattle's mindset is, well, not only do they still got to score, they also still got to get the 2-point conversion. Yeah. Whereas, hey, we're down 5. If we give up a play and they score, we're going to lose this game. It's a different mindset when you're at that point of a game, especially when you know how you've been playing.
The reason why I think you take the points there is because there is also the situation which actually played out where they did get the ball back with 3 timeouts prior to the 2-minute warning.
Right.
you could have kicked another field goal and then pulled yourself within 2, still had 3 timeouts left and the 2-minute warning to kick it deep and try and get the ball back again.
That game would have wound up 17-15. We'd have been even more sick. Trust me, I played through that scenario in game, and you know what? I'm like, you know what? Doug Peterson stayed true to form. He's been that way. There's no need for him to change who he is and who he's, purported himself to be to his team. The message that he's trying to send is that, you know what? We're going to try to tie this thing up. And we're gonna move from there. We're gonna stay aggressive. And if that's your mindset, then do it. Because, I've seen enough of the non-aggressive mindset in the world of football over the years to know that, when you're not trying to win, when you ain't playing to win, 9 times out of 10, that's when you lose.
Yeah.
So I don't have a problem with him managing the situation the way that he managed it. Not at all.
You play to win the game.
Exactly. We're gonna go to the whiteboard where Seth's gonna show us why the Eagles struggle against mobile quarterbacks. But first, this word from our proud sponsors, Kingsmark Cabinets.
Tom, this is amazing. Man, I should have went with Kingsmark from the beginning.
It was a pleasure working with you.
If I ever see that other contractor again.
Hey, big guy. Wife let me in. Just here to finish up those cabinets.
For all your cabinetry needs, contact Kingsmark Custom Cabinets and Design. Well, today we're going to talk about this thing again that we've always kind of talked about with this defense. And the Eagles' defensive line and their struggles with trying to contain and keep mobile quarterbacks under control. You saw the game last night. You realized that Russell Wilson made a lot of plays outside the pocket. He extended some plays. He also converted a bunch of third downs. They were 8 for 15, I believe it was, for 53% on third down conversions. For a defense, that's killer. That's absolute killer. But when we talk about being able to contain the quarterback and keep him in the pocket, we know that Russell Wilson is a great quarterback. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about that. But at the end of the day, if you're a defensive coordinator, a team, you'd rather have this guy always playing from the pocket rather than having him outside. Now, the disclaimer is, I found out recently that these players, a lot of times, these defensive ends who are responsible for contain, they're coached on action away to close down the line. That's why you see Brandon Graham with a lot of tackles for losses. That's why you see Derek Barnett with a lot of tackles for losses. So the problem is, when you lose the integrity of your defense and the mindset in plays away is to actually chase down the line, it becomes problematic, on any play action passing, and it becomes problematic, in just any passing plays, whatsoever. Because what winds up happening is, let's say that you've got a fake here, and this guy closes, and then the quarterback boots out here, okay? Now the integrity of your defense is done. I mean, it's completely done. And especially with a guy like Russell Wilson who can get out of the pocket and throw on the run, that can hurt you with his legs, that's problematic. The Eagles tried a couple of different things in the passing game yesterday to try to keep Russell Wilson under control, but he's just masterful at what he does. They did everything from running a ET game with the tackle with contain to spying with Nigel Bradham. None of it seemed to work because I think that, with our defensive ends, the other thing that begins to happen is the fact that, in the pass rush game, these guys are so hell-bent on getting to the quarterback that sometimes they get in here. They're fighting. These guys are fighting. You got all this fighting going on, and the quarterback gets out of the pocket. They extend the play. He hit Metcalf on the sideline for a first down. He hit a back out of the backfield for a first down. In the first series of the game, he took off and ran for like 24 yards for a first down. The critical part about being a fundamentally sound defense, is hard because you're telling these 4 guys, get to the quarterback, get to the quarterback, get to the quarterback. So they're trying to get there by any means necessary. But these guys, if I'm a defensive coordinator, what I'm trying to do is I want to get this guy 3 yards up the field. I want him to stop. I want him to get 3 yards up the field and stop. Now, understand, that's tough for these guys to do because we want them to get to the ball. But when you got a guy like Fletcher Cox playing the way that he played yesterday, like a man possessed, they could not block him. He's pushing the pocket, okay? Now, if you can get Tim Jernigan or whoever here to push the pocket here or bring an extra guy and push the pocket here, look at what you've created. There's nowhere for Russell Wilson to go. He's stuck in the pocket, and you make him play from here. But when these guys lose their lane discipline and he gets outside of the pocket, that's a major problem. The last thing is being able to disguise. On the last play when they went zero coverage, you actually had Jalen Mills line up here. He was coming off the slot. He showed it too early, which gave Russell Wilson a pre-snap read. And then you had